there were some people in there who, you know, but you never quit. Like at any point, you were always in it to win it, and I always admired that in you. Like seeing your speech when Tucker went home and everything like that really emotionally like affected me because I was just like, she's been fighting this whole time, like like she's been like going for it and digging and. Yeah. So it was cool to get home and see how long you lasted. And you probably saw that when I got eliminated. I was literally rooting for you to win because I was just like, this would be the craziest season ever. And this lady somehow won after everything she did. After I'm in the backyard telling her, you're going to go home. And then I go home and she like somehow wins. Like, how crazy would that be? Like, I was really hoping it would happen. And I also knew too that I hate to bring this up, but the HOH that you lost where you went home, you were so close to winning it, and I was just like, oh my god, I know she would have won that. She would have put up Chelsea, like, because that was another thing about you too is I think that you like knew what to do, like you knew the game well enough to where I feel like you would have been like, oh, I need to get rid of Chelsea, like if I win right here, like that's like the move to do.
If I could have just convince Leah to put Chelsea up in Janky World instead of T-Core, I think it would have been a game changer right there. And Leah probably would have had to break the tie and Chelsea would have gone home.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah, and I talked to Leah afterwards and she said she was really close to doing that, right?
She was. She had, before she became HOH, before we went out into Janky World, we were already having issues with Chelsea. Chelsea was fabricating stories and making them bigger and saying things and adding on to them things that I didn't say. And she was also in Mackenzie's ear, now looking and seeing what truly happened and giving her fabricated things as well. So yes, there was motive to put her up. And yes, there was motive because she was a threat. She is a fan of the show. She is winning HOHs, right? So definitely she was more of a threat in our eyes than T-Core was. But because I didn't want to influence Leah and her, ability to make choices on her own, having this HOH, and I wanted her to feel safe and secure in whatever choice she made, I didn't really want to influence her because she said that was a big reason why she felt a little distance from Quinn and from you, because she kind of felt like, she wanted to make her own moves and her own decisions, hence playing the veto on me. So I didn't really want to be a hindrance or anything like that or impact her decision.
Yeah. That's I knew that about her.
Suggested it though.
I knew that about Leah too. So whenever I would talk game with her, I never tried to tell her what to do. Like I was never like, oh, like I would always try to like, circle around it. And then I go home and I watch Quinn's pitch to her to like not use it. He's literally begging her and telling her not to. And I'm like, oh no, like no wonder she did it. like it's just so funny watching it back and everything.
Sometimes when we're talking in the house, and these are things that she said to me in the house. When you're talking in the house, sometimes the emotion is heightened, and then the perception is like everything, right? So just because she said that doesn't necessarily mean that she feels that way now. But in those moments, I didn't want to now be that same person to her that she was already having to deal with. I wanted to be a supporting person to her in whatever decision she wanted to make. But I definitely should have suggested Chelsea. Things would look a lot different now, but you cannot go back. You cannot change things. And chances are I would not have won this show, because looking at some of those games they had to play in the end there, where they were holding on to this thing and going and doing that 90-degree angle, kind of like the wall and that robotic thing. There's no way I could have done that. I would have given it my best fight, but I just don't think I could have held my body weight and pulled that off.
Yeah.
They would have brought me out a week later.
Yeah. I think it would have depended on who you were sitting next to too. Like as far as like the jury goes. Cause I don't know, I don't know who would have voted for you in that scenario. I think Chelsea would have for sure. I think Chelsea respected your game. But I have a question for you that I've been wondering.
I have questions for you too. So
okay, cool.
Let's go.
So I'll get one out just real quick, which is the line from the thing with Matt. Your words are, you know what? So put them back in your ass. Have you said that before in life?
Never.
Like, did you just come up with that in the moment?
Just came up with it. It was spur of the moment.
That is crazy.
Just listening to him talk, and I was just like, I don't know. Joseph, I'm telling you, that's how come I probably got casted, because I told them, this girl has a big mouth. if I get going, like there's no holding me back. And it just, I'm listening to him come back at me. And I'm honestly in the moment quite shocked that not one house guest said one word during that whole thing. Like 15, CJ, like 15 minutes that was. And not even Kenny, who's sitting there going,
you should say like what up to what point was rehearsed in your head.
Oh, the only point, is that what people are asking? CJ's kind of monitoring a little bit of the chat. The only part that was really rehearsed for me to go down was the clinking of the sandals. I knew going up and down those stairs that would get people's attention. And then I knew if I clapped along with the clinking of the sandals, I could get everybody in that area before we went off to play the veto challenge. I knew I could get everybody's attention by doing that. And the only part that I kind of had rehearsed in my head wasn't even necessarily that I would shout out crazy eyes. It was more of it was about you coming up to my room and me telling you that it was a low budget movie kind of situation. Okay? That was the major thing that I rehearsed in my sleep.
You know what's so funny too is I was so distracted by everything else you were doing. I had no idea you were talking about me. Like that did not register.
It was a crazy morning. Plus it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. We're all deliriously tired still. I barely slept.
And somebody tells me later, they're like, yeah, she was talking about you and Quinn. I was like, wait, what? Like, she called me a low budget movie? I love movies. Like, what?
I know, that's why it was great, right? It was very tailor-made to you, Joseph.
Yes,
but
yes.
People are asking on here if our fight was real. I don't really feel like we ever really had a fight. I feel like there was just, Joseph you're very, very real. Like you are going to just say, like me, we're very similar in that way, is we're just going to tell you like it is. Whatever we're thinking, we're just going to freaking tell you.
Yeah.
Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we're just going to say it.
Yeah.
And we're not going to sugarcoat it. And I think you just kind of gave it to me straight on. The only part of that conversation in the yard when you told me, you're not going to sing my swan song or whatever it was, I think the only part that kind of upset me is that I went to you, Joseph, because I did care about you and I did trust you and I felt it back.
Yeah.
Like I felt that it was reciprocated. However, when I went to you and I'm like, hey, do you think you can put in a word for me to Quinn? And then you're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, what? Who are you? I thought you were my friend.
I was like, I felt like throughout the game, that was literally me just losing my patience. Like if I could go back in time, I would have just been like.
And you know what, Joseph? Who could blame you?
Yeah.
You were dealing with this, I'll say, above middle-aged woman who's kind of off her rocker a little bit right now this game. She's playing with way too much of her emotions, which was not a strategy of mine going in. I did not want to play with my emotions at all, but it just it took on a life of its own. And and I've said this before, but like the game says, expect the unexpected. Well, expect the same of its players, because we shock ourselves. I know I did.
Yeah.
I did things and said things and made moves that I didn't think I would make going into the house.
Yeah, no, you lose your mind in there. So like that was me like losing my mind, where I was just like, Angela, there's no way I can, because the way you phrased it to me was like, can you put in a good word for me with Quinn? And in my head, I'm like, no, like there's no going back between you two.
Why would you do that for me, Joseph?
I should have just lied. Like I should have just lied, honestly, and been like, yeah, I will.
You
like,
should have.
No, yeah, literally, I should have lied. But that was like, that was me once again, like trying to tell the truth and like hoping that would like help,
I
but it
respect,
actually made
I
shit
respect
worse.
the hell out of that, Joseph. I do. It just was, I thought, I thought we had a friendship of some kind, a bond.
Right.
And I just thought you would have just done that, because Leah was kind of leading on and alluding to the fact that I was just up as a pawn, and that's what her understanding was. And I do truly believe that she believed that. And I thought, well, maybe that is true. Maybe I am. And maybe somehow I can work with Quinn indirectly and with you.
He was weird about it. And honestly, if I could go back in time and like really do everything over again, what I would have done, but I didn't think I had enough pull with him at that point. So after Tucker went home, I thought Quinn was against me because he knew I was with Tucker and Tucker was against him. So I didn't know how much Quinn trusted me.
Yeah.
So I really didn't try to like influence his nominations. I was pretty much just like, as long as it's not me, like I really don't give a shit. Like, and then it wasn't me. So I was like, okay, whatever. But if I could go back in time, what I should have done is tried to get you two to bury the hatchet and have it be us four, Leah, Quinn, and you and me. I think that would have been the move there, to just like let bygones be
Unstoppable.
bygones.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Were you happy with the way that Big Brother did your edit? Are you happy with that at
No.
all?
No,
What
not at
don't you
all.
like about it? What would you change?
I mean, I don't think it was unfair necessarily. I think they definitely made me seem like a little bit more cocky than I was. I was
Okay.
definitely feeling myself at times, but I think that people just sometimes didn't get my sense of humor. And I think that a lot of times, you know me, I'm very deadpan. I can say things in a way where if it's like misinterpreted the wrong way, that people can see me in a certain light. So I just felt like, one, under edited, and two, when I was edited, it was like, oh, this is like an arrogant jackass, like for the most part, because I would just run my mouth in the diary room. I didn't care. I'd be like, these people are idiots. Like, what are they doing? Like, you know. But whatever. It was funny, and I really don't have that big of a problem with it now. I think like the people who did like me, like really like me, and like related to me, and like I've gotten like some like musicians and like people and like who I admire being like, dude, you were the only one I liked on the show. Like you kept it so real in there. So like whatever, honestly. The edit's the edit. And honestly, it's like we're all victims of the edit in some ways. Like people ask me about you in real life and they'll be like, what's she like? Is she really like that? Oh my God. And I'm just like, yes, she was, but like you also didn't see like the other parts where she was like really kind and thoughtful and sweet and like warm. So I don't what about you? How did you feel about
Uh,
your edit?
Honestly, I think it was fun. I do. I didn't know. You know when you're going into when they call you into the diary room and they're asking you about certain things, like they were asking me about the whole charcuterie thing. I'll touch on that one. They were really
Yeah.
asking me about that, and it was a low moment for me in the house. I mean, you know, I love food. I'm a foodie, and not being able to eat and eat that crappy slop and whatnot and pickles isn't necessarily great for 7 days. And then sleeping on that box. So when I'm watching all those meats and cheeses come out, knowing that I had just put them in there fresh from the HOH refrigerator, it was kind of I was dreaming of when I would get to put those together and that I was going to enjoy those. So when it all got brought out, of course I was pissed off. And then I'm getting called in the DR and I'm getting asked, how do you feel about that? And da 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 da. Of course now I'm gonna get more pissed off. And so they're pulling it out of me and I'm like, yeah, that's my freaking meats and cheese. And then they do stay good for this long. But then
Yeah.
you know, because then they ask you to come back in again, and then you know, okay, they're gonna form a story around this now. So
Yeah.
they're very interested in it. So there's some things you can kind of are telltale signs that they're going to put in the edit. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of fun and you kind of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna just go hook and sinker on this one and just bare my soul because it's interesting enough to Big Brother. Well, then it must be interesting to the fans.
Right.
So I'm gonna bare my soul and share my truth and just let it all out. And so that's what I did each and every time there was like something that they were asking me about or whatever, or wanting to get more insight. I would just share more and bare my soul because they know best. Being a fan of the show and watching it, and watching other people's seasons like Taylor's and stuff, and her being a pawn all the time. Like if they're calling you there and they're asking about specific things, you want to give them everything. You don't want to hold back because they know what the fans are getting interested in right now. And so, to answer the question, I just was giving you the long of it. I am happy with the edit. I know there's some parts in there that I'm not necessarily 100% proud of, but I also have to own it because it was our story, Joseph,
Yeah.
and the house guests that were there, and only our story and only the house guests will know how each of us were feeling in
Mm-hmm.
there. It is a pressure cooker. You're under scrutiny. You have cameras on you 24/7. It's a lot that goes into it, and you're getting to live this dream, but sometimes you don't always feel. I know all of us have feelings of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or if I had just done this,
Yeah.
I might have survived that, and I might be there at the end. So,
Right.
what are you gonna do? All you can do is just watch it back, be proud of it, own it,
Yeah.
and say, "What a
I,
freaking ride it was!"
I I actually think in some ways I went out in a good spot for that because for me, there's not like a singular thing where I'm like, oh, if I would have done that different, I would have made it to the end. And you know what I mean? Like well, like, honestly, Quinn should have put me up. That was his, like, mistake. Like, so, like, yeah, like, were there things I could have done differently? Yeah, for sure. But is there like one thing I could point to? Like, no, not really. There's several things. So, question for you. Were you ever thinking about backdooring me week 1?
No, even
Okay.
though I was giving you no trust signals and verbally telling you, I don't trust you, Joseph. You hit my tiles. What are you doing, kid? Even though I felt that way and you were totally denying it, I still felt like you did. And I still felt like maybe because you wouldn't make necessarily great eye contact with me. I guess it's because what I do for a living, I make a lot of eye contact, and
Yeah.
I just, stand firm in what you're saying to somebody and you try to connect that way. I was just feeling like you wouldn't look me in the eye. So I thought maybe you're being shifty with me and not being straightforward. So then I was like, oh man, can I even trust him?
Yeah.
And plus I'm seeing that you're, making really good relationships all over the house. I mean, you were a busy bee. You did it
Yeah.
nonchalantly, but you were still doing it nonetheless. And so I wasn't sure like how many connections you were actually making and solidifying, alliances and final twos with. And sure enough, I had every reason to be, because you were.
No,
You
I
were
literally was
securing
a
final
snake.
twos, and
Like,
you were in alliances that I didn't
I
know
was
about.
literally a snake. But I was loyal to you. I was not coming after you. Like, I did have your best interest at heart.
Well, I
That's the
can
only
only
thing is I
know that
really,
now.
yeah, no,
You
yeah,
can't
for sure.
fully ever trust anybody 100% in the game.
No,
You
yeah.
can't. It's
No, yeah.
impossible.
No, for sure. And I get it. The mustache, everything. Yeah, I
No,
know that.
no, it has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I love your mustache.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. No, with the
I
when you called me out on the tiles, honestly, I just had no idea what you were talking about because I didn't do it on purpose. I truly did not. Like, I was dying during that veto competition. I was not focused on whose tiles were what. I was just grabbing whatever like would fit me from a letter. Like, was not even thinking about it. And then it's like so funny because right before that veto, Matt yells at me because he thinks that I told you to say all that stuff, and which I didn't. And then you're yelling at me about the tiles. I'm just like, what is that? I'm about to go home. I was like, everybody's mad at me.
I knew you were worried. I knew you were really worried.
I was
And
so
I
worried.
didn't want you to be, but there was not much I could say to you because I had already had a talk with Tucker about what was going to happen, what the plan was. And I was on pins and needles to know if this plan that we were concocting did I say that right? Was actually going to happen. Like, I was so nervous for it, but it worked. It was like a beautiful symphony. It worked out
Oh
beautiful. And
my gosh.
I could have
I
been more
I remember how
excited
nervous
about
you
that.
were that Matt was gonna win the AI arena. You were very nervous.
Yeah, I
Like,
really wanted Chemo to win, and he did. And
he
that
did.
scream I let out when they all ran back in and said that Chemo had won, when Julie announced that, oh my gosh, I was so, so excited about that.
Yeah.
That was just like wonderful, wonderful news.
No, yeah. I think that that was one of the happiest moments for me in the house was Chemo winning that, knowing that he was safe, knowing that we were gonna get Matt out. Like, that was definitely one of my favorite moments of the season.
That was a great moment. I will go ahead and go props to that. So I have written down several questions for you. I probably won't get to all of them, but I do want to know a couple of them. Were there any moments we didn't see on TV that you wish made the edit, since we're talking about edits?
Oh man, that's good. Oh my gosh. I don't know if this made the edit or not, but when Tucker, this was after you had backstabbed him. And like, we're all like sleeping like upstairs and Tucker's sleeping and you go up to him and you're like, Tucker, can we just talk about this like adults? Like, can we just not be awkward about this? And then Tucker's like, I'm sleeping.
I know. I know.
That was so good. And me and Cam just walked away. We were like, we don't want anything to do with this.
And
right
he
now.
continued to humor me and talk with me for a few minutes. And we went back and forth. He kept saying, when you get home, you're going to watch it back and you're going to see. And I didn't know what he meant by that, because he just seemed like, even though he talked a lot with me, it felt like, excuse me, Justin.
I am not high, chat.
It felt
but go ahead.
like he was a man of few words with me. He didn't share everything. Like, he just didn't.
Yeah. No, I think that like when I got back and I watched the way he dealt with you, in my head I'm just like, oh, why didn't you just make a final two with her? Why didn't
But
you
he
just
did.
solidify that?
But he did,
Yeah.
Joseph. He did in the
Oh, he
and
did.
the have not room. Yes, he did. When I kind of was having one of my major breakdowns when the H and the have not room and the HOH room, he took me away from everybody and we went into the have not room and we had a good long conversation. And it was there that he said he and I were going to go final two. We just never named it. And I came up with a lame name. I said we could be the oh, what did I tell him? I forget. But and he goes,
Yeah.
no, no, no. He goes, no, 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 no. I'll think of something and I'll get back to you. But he never did. And so I just assumed that we were still good as a final two. But then as his relationships were growing in the house with other people, I felt myself and him distancing ourselves further and further apart. And then the paranoia sets in. And then because he is a man of few words and he didn't just say Angela, now he was telling everybody else, but he didn't come to me and say it. He was telling everybody else, like yourself, she's just a little she's shaken right now, she's just a little emotional, she'll be fine tomorrow, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And he understood me, but he didn't understand that he needed to communicate with me and let me know that he and I are fine, it's okay, like, girl, don't worry, any of that stuff. Instead, I just felt like he was spending most of his time with other people. Not that I'm jelly, but that I didn't know that our relationship was going to be strong enough that we would go to the end. But hindsight 2020, he would have taken me at least to final five. But then also I was there for another reason. I was there for myself to take myself. But you need
Yeah.
people for that too. So
Right.
I wish I could have talked myself off the ledge so many times with my paranoia.
Yeah, I think that like I remember when we made Sixth Avenue together. I in my head I was like, this is perfect. I was like, I will get to the final three with Angela and Tucker, and and I think that they'll both take me. Like I don't think that like I don't know what you would have done, but that was like at least what was in my head. Was I was like that was what I wanted at that point in the game, was it to be you, me, and him final three. Yeah, that would have been my ideal scenario.
That could have been a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
think that would have been a lot of fun. Again, I just shoot, just the paranoia and playing with emotion. It's just rough. And worrying about my family at home. I had no business doing that. They were completely fine, Joseph.
Chuck
Fine,
held it
fine,
down.
fine. Everybody was great. They were like, girl, you would have been fine to stay. But I just didn't realize they would be watching the live feeds the way that they were. I mean, everybody, they were watching it at work. Their coworkers were now invested. I mean, it was a big deal. And they were just fine. The dogs were fine. The house was fine. The husband was fine. The grandkids.
Yeah.
I should have just I should have focused more that I'm getting to live this dream and I need to not play so emotional. I need to shut that off as much as I can and play strategically. And that's where those shoulda, coulda, wouldas came in. And I can't go back now. But if I'm ever invited back, I think things would be a lot different for me. Will I still use my big mouth? Yes, sure I will. I
Yeah.
know I will. That's just
I
who I
mean,
am.
you're saying you played emotionally and all this stuff, but you made it pretty damn far,
I
like playing how you
did.
played.
But
So,
that's
you're
where
doing
it
something
comes
right.
in where I'm like, I could have done better. We're
Right.
always going to be our biggest critiquer. And I could have done better if I had left out some of that emotion of missing home, because that impacted me in such a way that I couldn't trust, and that I was staying up late and all the things that happens to you in the big brother house.
Yeah. No, and like it's harder for you too, because I'm sure that that is not your normal sleep schedule, but that like the freaks come out at night, like that's when the gameplay happens, and you have to stay up and all this
Yeah,
stuff,
you
you
little
know.
freak. You little
And you
freaky
were and
Joseph.
you were up in
Don't
the
think I
middle of the
didn't
night.
see you going in and out of that squeaking door that I have to sit in that freaking room there, in that futuristic Power Ranger room, where I have now, with my eyes shut, I know whose feet are shuffling. And dude, you were playing musical beds. I think I'm going to go off into the rock room now, because I'm good in this room. I'm good in the flower room. I've solidified relationships here. I need to now take my ass to the rock room, take over Tucker's bed, and get in good with Chelsea and everybody. You don't think I don't know that? Oh my gosh.
I didn't care if people knew. I was like, I'm gonna do it either way.
Yeah, you
I
were.
don't care if it's obvious.
Again,
Like,
freak. You're the freak that came out at night. I heard those feet shuffling. People get up. Joseph's getting up too. He wants to know what's going on. I just
oh yeah, no.
crap.
I think That was actually, if I can give any advice to somebody, that's how you get into like alliances early on. Just stand in front of people. Just walk into the room. Just do whatever you have to do. It doesn't matter. If people get annoyed by you, they got annoyed by you. Like, yeah, that was my strategy for sure. But yeah, honestly, that was one of the funniest moments though, when you and me were have nots together. That first night, we like lost our minds. Like
I'm
we were
so
just laughing out.
sorry. I snore so terribly bad. I do. And I feel so bad. I mean, I heard even Mackenzie said that I snored like a freight train or whatever. And I feel so bad for the two of you and for Quinn and for anybody else and Chemo who had to sleep next to me. Man, yeah, my husband's had to record me snoring. It's pretty bad. Pretty darn bad. That's punishment enough. Anybody has to sleep next to me with my snoring. I am so, so sorry. What was that, Chuck? Oh yeah. I got my phone plugged in, so that's I'm sorry. I'm having to hold it. I don't want it to
No,
be
you're good. Yeah.
really shaky. I have
Yeah,
more
doing
questions.
it with you and Chemo, that was like a lot. There was like a symphony of
Oh,
snoring.
I know.
And like I was
Kenny
like,
was
oh
a
no.
snorer too.
Yeah, I
It
know.
was. And
Yeah,
I
he's
guess
very
when I
loud.
would stop, he would start, and then I'd stop, and he back and forth. Like it was miserable for the house.
And then Angela was also notorious for yelling stuff in her sleep as well. She'd be like, F word. Shit, like she would just go like in the middle of the night, and you're just like, "Are you awake? Are you not awake?" And you would go right back to bed afterwards. Like it was honestly incredible to me.
I'm
I
used
was
to
like,
it. I'm my new
yeah.
best friend. I'm used to that shit. So Joseph, what did you learn about yourself on Big Brother, if anything at all? What did you learn?
I think I learned that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was. I think in order to be in that game, you have to be like a strong person mentally to just get through it, like day after day. And I kind of impressed myself that way, where there are times where I felt like really low, but was still gonna fight, was still gonna get up the next morning and not feel sorry for myself and try to figure out how I'm gonna get my way out of this certain situation. So I think it taught me like how strong I am, and also that maybe sometimes I need to watch what I say before I say it. So yeah, that's what I learned about myself. How about you?
That's really good. I think I'll piggyback on that a little bit, and I know I've said it out loud.